Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're located in the world. Thank you for attending the CyberProof webinar, Infosec in India, before, during, and after COVID-19, hosted by Anand Trivedi, CyberProof India's head of cybersecurity operations. First of all, if you're watching live and working remotely during this period, don't worry if there's a network connection issue. A recorded version of this presentation will be available using the same URL shortly after we are finished. If you have any questions, you can type them at any time. Please use the Ask a Question tab located below the player. Your question will be addressed during the Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. There are also some additional resources for you to check out under the Attachments tab below the player. You can also download those at any time. And finally, at the end of this webinar, please take a moment to rate this presentation and provide any feedback using the Rate This tab below the player. Your feedback is really important to us. Take it away, Anand.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for taking out the time and being with us today. In these times, these are very different times, if I could call it different. And I think I would like to wish safety to everybody. I wish all of you are safe. And me and my family are safe. We are all working from home. I'm based out of Mumbai. We are in strict lockdown. And I thought this is the right time to share my perspective on how InfoSec looks in India during these times, how it has evolved, and what should we do, right? How security heads should cope up with the current situation in the security threats. Well, again, the same disclaimer that Deborah made, I am working from home, and if there is any disruption due to the internet connectivity, I would apologize for the same, and hopefully in the recording, you should be able to catch up. We'll quickly move on to the agenda on the flow of our discussion today. I wanted to start with how we started this year, how we started the Jan 1, 2020 in terms of the top challenges of the CISO. It's of course very different from the situation we are in today. So let's look at the top challenges that the CISOs had at the beginning of the year, which of course we would look at. Then we would slowly move on to what has changed, how has business been impacted, and business impact to know the business impact globally and especially in India, because we are in the Indian subcontinent, would be critical to know how security should adapt to a business. We would then move on to the challenges on the business side, on the technology adoption, and the threat landscape that has been the top challenges that the CISOs now see in terms of putting their security posture in the right structure. And last, we would see how the life of the CISO is today and what tools and technologies the CISOs or the security heads have. Well, when I talk about CISO in my conversation, just wanted to make sure that it's anybody who's responsible for security across all levels, right from a CRO or a CIO or even a security analyst. We all have a role to play in putting the security posture up and ensuring that our organizations are cyber safe. So CISO is not a particular role that I'm talking about, but it's somebody who's responsible for security. But let's quickly delve in. So these are the top challenges that the CISO had in terms of the current times, the current security threats in the current era, in the 2020 that we started. Basically, it had strategic alignment as always the top. The quantum of impact that a cyber breach causes today is greater than any other time in the past. Hence, CISOs have a bigger role to play in the business. They have more years in time of the CEOs and the management and the board. And hence, they need to be strategically aligned to the organization's objectives, or whether the organization plans to grow organically, inorganically. So it's more than important than ever in terms of aligning strategically your security program with the organization's objectives. Regulations are being evolved globally, and ensuring that you are compliant to all regulations in the land in which you operate, in the sector in which you operate, and your regulatory bodies that might control your sector. So if you're in insurance in India, it's the IRDA, whether if it's your mutual fund or broking business is the SEBI, and if it's banking, it's RBI, and if you're in critical infrastructure, then the government has regulations. Of course, we have GDPR and all the other regulations where our customers are based, and the data privacy law that India looks to put up. Of course, it's gone on a back. Cloud security in terms of the technology, the cloud security in the emerging technologies are something that CISOs have to keep a close watch on and work closely in adopting cloud. It's a given that we are moving cloud to a cloud definitely has benefits in terms of technology, in terms of financials. It makes more sense usually adopting the cloud, and hence security needs to be ensured even when an organization adopts cloud. Well, many organizations today operate completely on cloud. So cloud security is definitely critical, and given it's a new area, it's an area where it's prone to mistakes by people who build the infrastructure, and the threat actors are just waiting to catch up on the mistakes that we do. Staffing, to me, continues to remain a challenge. Getting good talent in cybersecurity, it's one of the areas which has high job demand. In addition to cloud, RPA, AI, and staffing remains a challenge. Response and remediation is something that I think CISOs or security heads definitely need to look at as to how to reduce the response time, how to remediate faster. So detection, response, and remediation of the threats are something that that's an area of continuous improvement, I would say. Attacks are definitely getting larger. We are dealing with much larger data sets with data science, big data coming in. Organizations are accumulating large amount of data because they now have the ability of looking at unstructured data, drawing real-time analytics, and making decisions, informed decisions based on the data. In fact, we all know that it said data is the new oil, right? So dealing with data is something that is definitely critical for CISOs on how to keep it secure in whatever form, structured, unstructured, and how it moves within your organization and even outside your organization in terms of the data being sent to your vendors and your business partners. And overall strengthening the foundation of the information security posture of your organization is something that encompasses all your cybersecurity strategies and your cybersecurity program. And that's something that should be strengthened and should be agile and evolving as well. So just keep these in mind when we discuss the entire time period that we've gone through in the last 3 months and how it has changed security. And we'll come back to it. Well, of course, what happened in the last changed upside down. And we've been introduced to a new dictionary of terms which did not exist in our life. Social distancing, pandemic, COVID-19, coronavirus, fomite, lockdown. Our lives have started revolving around these new things that came into our lives in different forms. And depending on what country you are, what state you are, what region, locality you are, you started hearing a lot about this. Of course, the internet was flooded with information and people looking for information around it all the time. But it's definitely something that is unprecedented, and nobody could have been thought of it before it came through. In fact, in February, I was in Spain, Barcelona, and for a week when all of this was just starting, yeah, no, I couldn't imagine. We were with our colleagues in Barcelona for a week. We all had a good connect. I went around the city and in few other cities in Spain, and it was all beautiful. And looking at the situation now, it's scary, to be honest. So our life has definitely changed because of the COVID-19. Now let's look at what's changed at the business side, right? What's changed in the business? I think to sum it up in one word, I would say there is uncertainty. Whatever we might say, we might read. I think these are uncertain times. When I was preparing for this webinar a few days back, when it got scheduled, I was thinking that the lockdown might end in India in May 12th, and people might be back in their office, or at least there will be more freedom. But yeah, things with whatever imagination we have, things are getting extended, and we need to be cautious right now. I think a cautious approach is what is important. Well, when in these uncertain times, of course, the business objectives and the business parameters also change. The strategy also changes. Profitability becomes less important. Cash flow has become more important. Everybody needs to conserve cash. All businesses are looking at their cash flow and how it is impacting payroll to payroll, month after month. And of course, there's uncertainty on when things open up, how would they look, right? Different sectors and different economists are coming up with different projections on how it is going to impact the organization's sales, or running various simulations. But I still feel there is a lot of uncertainty. We have still a lot of ground to cover globally together, where we can say, okay, now we know what to look up to and how it's going to look sometime from now. But interestingly, I was looking at the GDP growth from IMF in 2019, and you could see the impact in the next 2-3 slides. You would see, right? So we were all green. There was good growth globally, except for a few regions which were behind, which was suffering. But all developed nations had a decent growth. India, China seem to have growing really well with 5, 6, 7%. And yeah, let's see 2020, right? What changed? So if you see this, suddenly, the projections of 2020 are now looking much bleaker. Well, this wasn't the scenario on the same IMF data mapper at the beginning of 2020. We all had projected almost the same kind of growth that we saw in 2019, with maybe a little bit higher and lower numbers from region to region. But yes, everything has been thrown into a tinsy, and we're now seeing that most parts of the world might see negative growth, and there are a few spots. Of course, India and China are expected to have some growth, much lower than the earlier estimates, but that's still a projection. So just looking at 2019 and 2020, you can assess that there is a major impact on the economies of the world. Of course, this is the GDP data, and for just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, GDP is a single measure of the country's overall economic activity. It represents the total value of constant prices of finished goods and services produced within a country during a specific period of time. In this case, that's a year. So it's the total value of the constant prices of finished goods and services, right? So in India, of course, is big on services. China is big on manufacturing. But let's look at what we see in 2021, right? I'm sorry, this is an error. It's 2020, 2021, right? So looking at 2021, we all see that it probably might be all green again. So definitely IMF is optimistic, saying that the entire globe would come over it. This is a tough year, but we have things which are looking positive to grow in the future, right? Well, so let's look at India, right? What's changed in India? And the more I tried to search, I thought that there is very little in terms of what we can, in current day today, we can predict on how it would look, right? The impact on different industries is different. We know that automobile sales in the past month has been a big zero. Airlines are at halt. There are no trains running except we started some yesterday, very limited, but tourism industry is majorly impacted. Entertainment services like malls, theaters are closed. So there are some sectors which have big reasons to worry, and they are waiting to see how the country or the population behaves once things open up. But definitely, I don't see everybody rushing to malls and multiplexes in the very near future. There are some sectors which had their businesses which are actually benefited. I think e-commerce, especially in terms of the essential goods, not about the other stuff, but the essential goods, definitely it has been a busy time. Rather than customers, their biggest worry right now has been supply chain and getting the staff to deliver the goods to the end customer, and of course ensuring the safety of their employees. But e-commerce business, especially for essential goods, has been a major beneficiary of the unfortunate times. Online pharmacy again has taken a big taken good growth in terms of its online orders and the customers who are now wanting everything online and do not want to go out, which is probably the right thing to do right now. Insurance, I think they might benefit, especially the life insurance, not the general insurance. But life insurance might benefit because of the fear that people now are faced. Online education and online entertainment definitely has been benefited. Everybody is on Netflix and Amazon Prime or Hotstar or whatever they're using to entertain themselves, to keep the kids busy. Online education, of course, has replaced all schools and colleges, and everybody's trying to educate and connect online to impart education, including the schools. And there are various online platforms. So different industries would have different impact, and those organizations would have to take different measures to overcome the impact and ensure that their business still is afloat, as well as healthy, right? So oil and gas, we know that the production of oil was, or the consumption of oil has been dropped by 48%, I read, in India last month. India being the biggest importer of oil, this is definitely something that has helped. But oil consumption, I think, would remain low for some time until the lockdown opens and then everything is back. Power consumption has little impact in terms of the industries which had been shut down, but that might slowly, people might get normal, at least once they open up to certain capacities. So different sectors have different impact, but there is probably negative impact more, it's higher negative than a positive. IT services sector, given its unique position on serving the India market as well as the global market, has seen its share of disruption. There were customers who were large customers who had ODCs, and some of them have been operating with their BCP. Some have been currently cut off, but I see there will be an impact, a negative impact on the IT services sector as well. Well, in all of this, I think technology has saved the day for a lot of us and a lot of organizations. We are all able to sit home, watch various entertainment available to us, order our essentials online, order medicines. And of course, from a business perspective, many employees have been enabled to work from home. So I think there has been a major savior for today's time if we compare to the pandemic that the globe has faced in the past. So employees were enabled to work from home through VPN, to Citrix, or all other remote technologies available. Cloud applications have ensured that whether the employee is, irrespective of the location, has the same access, has the same efficiency to work on those applications, and the applications are available to them. Video conferencing has been a major, I think, a major tool which has kept many people away from depression, or because they were able to see and communicate. We all probably had video conferences with our teams across the globe, or have team meetings, or talk to subordinates or employees or managers through video conference, and we can now see each other, and we all see that we all are in the same boat. So I think the video conferencing technology, and of course the availability of internet and bandwidth, and the penetration and the data speeds, which are decent in India, I think has been a big savior for making sure that businesses that can operate are technology enabled and can operate with the enablement of these technologies were able to do so. Of course, sectors like infrastructure or construction do not have that liberty. They need to be on the ground to be able to work, or if it's agriculture. So, the technologies that have helped in the lockdown for certain IT sectors were unfortunately not applicable to others. But for a major portion of the IT services industry, the BFSI sector, I think technology has definitely been a boon in today's day. Now, where did security fall in all of this, right? I think business continuity was always the top priority in this pandemic, and everybody was trying to ensure that at least employees are able to connect and work from home. Honestly, there was no business continuity plan that hasn't failed today, but still we ensure that people are able to become productive in the fastest possible manner. This, of course, added to certain risks, especially with endpoints. I know organizations that were struggling to deliver organization laptops or desktops to employees. They did to whatever available and critical. But then many were using their own systems. Many have been using their own systems till now that I know. And that represents an endpoint risk. In all of this, we didn't have the time to create new processes or put in new controls. It was always an afterthought unless there's a customer target. And this was spotted by our threat intel team. The Crimson Rat includes stealing credentials from victims' browsers, capturing screenshots, collecting antivirus information, running processes, drives, and directories from victim machines. And APD36, which is spreading this Crimson Rat malware, is a known Pakistani-linked state actor. Another hacktivist group, Ghost Squad hackers, GSH for short, defaces several Indian official websites, and that's an offshoot of the hacktivist group Anonymous. And they've been very active, and we've seen fairly splurge in their activity. They were quite quiet in the past couple of years, but Vigilante has exposed that they are now quite active. Another one is Who Are the Power. or how are the power? Well, that's again a novel attack, which is interestingly a PowerPoint attack. It allows an attacker to create a mouse over in a PowerPoint file, which would trigger the download of malware when a user hovers over a link in the presentation. Well, utilizing an element of social engineering, the user would then have to accept a pop-up dialog box to run or install a program. The executable file can also be run from a remote server by using a hyperlink to action. This attack affects the PPSX, basically a PowerPoint file, which are designed to play presentations and can't be edited. There are various others. I've listed a couple more. We could just go on, and I could take a session only on what's happening on the dark web. It's always an active place where a lot of things happen, a lot of bad things happen. But well, there is a new wave of QBot banking malware targeting banking networks around the world, and also Azuralt malware targeting Indian users exploiting coronavirus hype. Again, we see various activities in the deep and dark web very often, and we publish a weekly report from a threat intel team in Israel. But Chip, it's very eminent that the bad actors are taking advantage of the current pandemic and going after organizations, going after individuals, and trying to make a benefit. Ransomwares have also been observed in different quarters. So how does the CISO respond, right? On one hand, the organization has a transformation change with the work from home situation. Nobody's going to office. All their firewalls and stuff are no longer effective to the extent they were. And of course, the business is facing a tough situation. So let's see, how should a CISO respond? My first and foremost advice would be that we need to be bolder. We have to all be aware that nobody could be prepared for this. No businesses could be completely prepared, and no security posture or no BCP could be prepared for this situation. And this is an uncharted, unknown territory that everybody across the globe is in. Hence, to me, it's the time to be bolder, to tell the organization on what are the security risks that come in due to this, how they should be tackling it, and what needs to be done. There is definitely, something that we cannot handle. So we need to be bolder in highlighting the risk. We need to be bolder in our measures to protect our information assets, given the sudden changes. And we need to be more communicative. Well, in the next couple of slides, I have listed certain short-term measures and certain medium-term measures. I would say once once we are out of a panic situation, or once we know, okay, now this is the new steady state. So I would take you through them. In the short term, I would say, right now, employees working from home using their own devices are the biggest risk, which in the past we could just avoid by saying that this is not permitted. The CISO wouldn't approve, and there would be no BYOD devices connected to the organization network. But that's certainly not possible today. So what do we do is, first, we want to empower our employees with information. We need to tell them what are the risks and what are the measures they need to take. Everybody's working from home, so communication is the key. So we need to reach out to our employees and provide them with or equip them with tools that they can or measures that they can take to ensure that they are responsible to manage the information that they are handling in this situation. things like of ensuring that you have an antivirus on your computer in which is running and updated. Though it's your personal computer, there can always be recommendations. How to secure your Wi-Fi is one of them. And you could give a video on the settings that the employees can check and do a self check and maybe implement security controls on the router, their home router. Also, gamification of some sort to engage the employees is something that you should look at. Is constant mailers on the new risks and new ways that the attackers are using to target employees, which can be exploited, is something that you should constantly do. Maybe sessions, internal webinars, or internal mailers, whatever works based on your organization size, your organization culture is one of the key things. And that way we need to make them the strongest link possible to make sure that they understand the security risk and they handle information of the organization in a mature way. Second is to communicate. We need to constantly communicate. Well, that's more important than ever because we don't see each other, but constant communication with your coworkers, within the security team, we need to be tightly linked with each other to make sure that we are doing everything possible and the entire organization is working as entire security organization is working as one unit. That's the first thing. Second, we need to communicate up to the management constantly and making sure that you're highlighting the new risk, you're highlighting what the technology change, the new security risk introduced by the technology changes. Plus, you need to communicate the security risk due to the external factors that are impacting the security of your organization. And you need to communicate to all employees internal, down below and horizontally. So I think communication, I cannot stress is enough, but is a key in under this situation. Using threat intel is something that organizations should leverage, depending on your, again, risk posture or the risk appetite. It can either be a service that you avail, where you have some service provider monitoring the dark web, deep web for newer threats and providing you new indicators of compromise on a weekly, daily basis, or as and when they discover or uncover threats. Or you implement certain tools. There are various tools like SigScale, Insights, which have some level of automation into bringing new, highlighting new risks. So using threat intel is one of the key, I would say, that the organization should leverage and should be aware by listening into what's happening in the outside world. Again, in the short term, maintaining transparency is the key. We need to be transparent in what's going on. Again, as I said, nobody could be prepared for this, and hence nobody can blame if for whatever policies that we might have, right? We need to be transparent to the management, to the board, on what the current situation is and what's possible and what's not possible. I think those are the key tips I could provide in the short term when everybody's in panic. Of course, given in this situation, we are not talking about bringing in something new in the organization, but leveraging the tools that you have. Now let's look at beyond. When I say beyond, this is something that, when you are beyond a panic state and now be able to think of a medium term or a little longer horizon on what you should do and take the learnings from the current situation. So under this, the first one I would say is to align with business. It is very critical to align with the business imperatives, which are going to change, as we saw earlier in the presentation, in terms of growth, in terms of cash flow. There will be challenges. And ultimately, security is something that is there to protect the business. And hence, we have to align with the business imperatives at all times, but more critically under these situations, which are more fluid, which which carries a higher degree of uncertainty. And hence, we need to align the security posture with the business imperatives that are changed or that would change. Second, we need to be prepared to do more with less. Well, certainly budgets would be constrained, at least until there is complete clarity and things get back to normal. And that would apply to all departments, including security. So while on one hand, the risks are increasing, we are using technology which was earlier not approved and are forced to do that. So we need to be able to combat these threats with the tools and measures available with us. One of it is, of course, looking at open source. Traditionally, open source, of course, has its own benefits and disadvantages, but I would say we need to look at open source and see what we can do and what degree of protection it does provide the organization against the risks that are at large. And maybe try out. We can be a bit more experimental. Then I say we need to be bolder, right? So we can be a little bit more experimental with some open source tools in the absence of budgets to deploy or procure more tools that are required. SASE solution is something that I think we should consider. SASE is Secure Access Service Edge. It's a new enterprise networking technology. Gartner introduced this term in 2019. And it's basically a combination of WAN, CASB, your cloud access secure broker, and your firewall as a service, plus zero trust. It's a technology which encompasses all of these solutions. And it converges the function of network and security point solutions into a unified global cloud native service. It's basically a platform which gives you visibility of the entire network that is operating outside your organization. And CyberProof, in this case, has partnered with an Israeli organization to bring this solution and help its customers, wherein you can now have complete visibility into the network endpoints that are outside your organization, connecting. So basically, your employees sitting outside the organization and working from home. It does intelligent routing of the traffic by routing all the internet traffic or all your cloud applications, your O365, your SaaS services, software as a service, software that the organization uses, and reduces the burden on suddenly having the entire organization connecting to a VPN into your organization and then going out. It also, gives the benefit against a traditional VPN where everything is connected into your network and you have a huge traffic, which you now need to probably look at increasing your VPN server and VPN availability. Again, VPN acts as a single point of failure there. So I think SASE solution is something that organizations should consider as an addition to their technology stack of secure solutions, where in your entire security solution, security policies can be implemented over the cloud. They can all be exported onto the cloud and you get complete visibility and security while you have your remote workplace as the new norm. I think there are a lot of articles, and we understand that various IT companies would have now a majority of the workforce working from home. That could be the new norm. And hence, SASE solution is something I would say organizations need to look at and consider. When we are talking about zero trust, well, zero trust is again a framework. Let me give you some insights into zero trust, which is an interesting concept and is now recently taken up in a lot of security forums. But it's not a new concept. It is routed with the principle of never trust and always verify. Well, it's designed to protect modern digital environments by leveraging network segmentation And that, again, we call it micro-segmentation of your network, preventing lateral movement even within the network, within your organization network, providing a layer 7 threat prevention, and simplifying your user access control. How you implement zero trust is basically you take your more critical and valuable data, assets, applications, and services. You call it DAS, data, assets, applications, and services, and create micro-segmentations around it. You identify the protection surface that needs to be protected. You map your transaction flows through these data assets and applications. You build a zero trust architecture. You create a zero trust policy, and then you monitor and maintain the policy. Say for access to applications or authorization, you use multi-factor authentication. That's one of the ways you deal with authentication, where each time when a user logs in, you take his password and you provide something that is used for every instance of login to validate that it's the same user, unlike a password, which is something that you might reset over 30 to 60 days. So zero trust is, again, something that you should definitely consider. Next comes automation and use case factory. I think automation is something that should be a part of your roadmap, especially when it comes to your underlying SOC, which forms the heart, or your security operations center, which forms the heart of your information security posture in terms of detecting, resolving, and remediating incidents. You need to look at your business cases. You need to create digital playbooks and automate to the extent possible so that you can move into a different territory, a higher territory, and look at more use cases and come out of a loop where there is constant changes and you are in the same loop of training newer SOC people or newer staff that comes in with their high retention rate on how to manage incidents that have occurred in the past. Automation is a great tool. I think the entire technology is now moving to automation, into the levels of automation that we've never seen before. So that needs to be brought in security, where you create digital playbooks for your SOC, or you implement a SOAR platform, and then look at automating them. Of course, creating a use case factory is something that I would say organizations need to consider. That should be part of your SOC maturity journey on creating business use cases, right? Usually a SOC, if you see a mature SIEM, is numerous use cases which are out of the box. But then you do threat hunting specific to your business use cases, and then bring those use cases into a digital factory or a use case factory, where you then look at objectively bringing them maturely into a digital playbook and then automating fully or partly those use cases. I think these are certain tools that the CISOs need to look at and redraw their map of their information security posture. I think, if I liked what Ratan Tata, we all know Ratan Tata, he said yesterday, right, in one of his tweet that it can all start on a clean sheet of paper that looks at ways of doing things that were never thought of before. This crisis will force entrepreneurs to adopt and create. And these were the words of Ratan Tata yesterday. And I think it's very relevant to security, that we will need to look at it as a clean sheet and start drawing on what's relevant, not what's not relevant. Look at how effective the technologies that are already in place are. Are there any gaps that we need to fill in those end? And look at newer ways to protecting the organization. Well, with this, I think let me go back to the first slide that I started with, on what are the top challenges, and let's look at it now, right? So if I look at it now, I still feel, and hope you agree with me, is that the challenges are pretty much the same. We talked about strategic alignment. We talked about technology, emerging technologies and newer technologies, or newer ways of technology driving the business. We looked at cloud security. We looked regulations are not going to change. Staffing needs, especially high-skilled cybersecurity staff is not going to be easily available yet. We need to look at your response and remediation plans in terms of automation. Will attacks or larger attacks, volume of attacks increasing, dealing with data with the new technology arena, and strengthening your foundation. To me, it seems we just need to realign certain stuff, and we need to look at these in a different priority set. But the challenges of the CISO are pretty much on a larger scale, pretty much the same. With this, I think I would like to end on a quote. It says, staying positive does not mean that things will turn out okay. Rather, it is knowing that you will be okay no matter how things turn out. I don't have the source of this, but I think this is something which we all need to embed into our minds in the current state. Thank you very much for your time today. I would be happy to address your questions. Thank you.
Thank
Deborah,
you, Anand. We are a bit short on time, so I'm just going to ask one question. And if we don't get to your question, to those who are listening, Anand's email and phone number are on the screen, and you can feel free to reach out to him directly. Anand, in your experience, where have you seen complete automation succeed?
Complete automation, I think the best example I could think of is Tesla, right? Something like driving a car. Tesla has done a wonderful job in a complete automation experience. But if we talk about security and complete automation in security, I think there are a lot of use cases that we have actually implemented for our customers on our source CDC, the CyberProof Defense Center, using SIEMO, which is our AI bot, wherein we automate use cases. And there are definitely use cases which can be automated. The ones which the certain kind of attacks, certain kind of threats, which have been around for decades, can now surely be automated. But whether to automate a particular use case or your remediation against a particular threat would depend on the maturity of the organization, how well you have built your technology or your digital footprint of your organization to make sure that the automation can be implemented. So I think there is certainly a case for automation. Certain use cases can be fully automated, certain can be partially automated, but you just cannot go and automate everything or look at complete automation. You would have to objectively evaluate each of your use cases and then take up automation of these use cases. Right?
Great. Thank you for that. I think that's all we have time for today. We're about at the hour mark. Thank you very much, Anand. These were really great insights, and I think that everyone who's participating would agree that this was really informative. And to all those listening, thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to you joining our next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.